If y'all would have a seat, please. Oh, it's great to have such a great crowd here. We obviously got some other members, and we're going just I didn't realize it just a second ago. We got another committee meeting going to be here at 3:00, so we may run a little bit over, but we can't run a lot over. I want to read something that one of our people, one of the guests here today, gave me earlier today, and it said the reason third grade reading at levels matter so much is up until the third grade a student learns to read. After the third, they read to learn. Pretty cool. I don't see her now. But thank you. Max, Senator Burns, you mind praying?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you would join me, we'll have a word of prayer as we can begin. Father, we're grateful for challenges. We're grateful for opportunities. We're grateful for the privilege of service. We ask for your wisdom, that you give us guidance, that we do what is in the best interest of children in Georgia, and that they be educated so that they can become productive citizens in our communities and in our state. Bless us now as we learn more about this challenging issue. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Senator. I'm very excited today. I'm very fortunate, being from South Georgia, you just tickle to death when you see people from South Georgia, and I appreciate the Bullitt County people here today more than you know. It makes me feel really good. And also, Senator Dixon has some Barrow County people here, correct?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank y'all. And y'all going to be presenting in a few minutes. We're going to start it off with TCSG for their presentation. And Greg, if you would please introduce this nice lady to us and tell us what her title is.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, hold on just a second. Okay.
Mr. Chairman and committee, it's my honor. I get to sit here and maybe answer a question, but I brought the expert with me this time, so she definitely has the answers. But I'm honored to have Dr. Kiana Good sitting next to me. She oversees adult learners for TCSG in this state, does a phenomenal job. She's been in the classroom. She's worked at GOSA. She has served as the director of GOSA on an interim stance, and she's been over here at TCSG for 4 years now?
4 years.
4 years now, and just very, very impressed and honored to have her on this team. And I've asked her to give you the presentation today over the Certified Literate Community Programs.
So what we're going to do, if you don't mind, let's keep it somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes so we'll have some questions, and then we'll move on. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, good afternoon, committee members, Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the opportunity to discuss adult education, adult literacy, and our certified literate community programs. I serve as the Assistant Commissioner for Adult Education, and it's truly a pleasure to speak to you today about our work and how our work with adult learners fits in with the larger ecosystem of literacy within the state of Georgia. The Office of Adult Education sits within TCSG. Oftentimes, when people think about adult education, they automatically think about GED preparation. That is a significant part of what we do, but our office works across a significant continuum to assist adults in gaining meaningful opportunities. Opportunities to learn English, to become citizens, to earn a high school equivalency, to earn an industry-recognized credential, to have the education they need if they're incarcerated to earn a family-sustaining wage once they're released, and to participate meaningfully in the education of their children. I know that many of us have heard that a child's literacy begins with the parents. That's absolutely true. A mother's educational level is the greatest determinant of her children's future academic success, outweighing other factors like family income. Breaking the cycle of adult low literacy improves outcomes for everyone. You have heard for several days now the impact of literacy levels on high school graduation. Low literacy is both a national issue and a local issue. Nationally, we have a stunning number of adults who read at a literacy level comparable with that of a sixth grader. we have the staggering number of 1 million Georgians who lack a high school diploma or its equivalency. And according to PIAC, the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, Survey of Adult Skills, that's a mouthful, we have almost a quarter of Georgians who have low literacy skills. This issue is not new. In 1990, which seems like yesterday to me, but is a whopping 33 years ago, then Governor Zell Miller and First Lady Shirley Miller launched the Certified Literate Community Program to combat low literacy at the local level. CLCPs work in conjunction with our local adult education providers to ensure supports are in place to ensure that our adult learners are well served. This slide provides a brief glimpse of the number of adults that we serve. Prior to the pandemic, we served around 50,000 adults across the state. Of course, we had a dip in enrollment as a result of COVID, but you can see that we serve a variety of programs. Last year, we had 30 adult education providers funded through state and federal grants to provide the list of services that I mentioned earlier. Our local providers are varied, and I'm proud to say that we offer 100% free services in every county in Georgia. Yes, our programs are free, they are flexible, and they are designed to move our adult learners through to success in post-secondary and sustainable careers. Our programs do a fantastic job, and we are in the top quartile of states in performance with our federal benchmarks. I couldn't be prouder of the work that we do in the dedicated programs, which includes all 22 technical colleges, 4 school districts, and our community-based organizations that instruct our most vulnerable adults. Our current portfolio does a great job, but they certainly can't do it alone. Our federal funding has restrictions, and funds cannot be spent to address some of the greatest obstacles that our adult learners face: childcare, incentives to test, equipment, and in some instances, scholarships to test. Our certified literate community programs have stepped in the gap, and they've provided additional funds to support our adults and to retain our adults. CLCPs operate uniquely in each community because, of course, each community is unique. We have CLCPs that are nestled within family connections, school districts, nonprofits, and our technical colleges. One of our CLCPs is the school district of Tolliver County. Absolutely, the needs of the school student population there, largely around transportation and bandwidth, is very different than the needs of an adult learner in Fulton County who can utilize MARTA and has access to Wi-Fi in a variety of settings. The nature of CLCPs allows for a tailored approach to support literacy at the local level. For some areas, the CLCP may focus on providing additional tutorial beyond that of the local program. Others do a great job of marketing and advocacy, raising awareness of what literacy needs exist in their local community, and other CLCPs work to ensure that any local literacy initiative takes into account a multi-generational approach, 2Gen. I know that I don't have a lot of time left, but I did want to point out a few of our CLCPs in action. These pictures and the text highlight the need and how CLCPs work within the local community. I hate when someone reads off of the slide for me, but I'd like to read in the middle, which is what one of our student parents provided. My English is very limited. We do not have a home computer, and we do not have extra money to pay for internet service. So here, I have 5 children who need to be educated, but I am not smart enough to teach them. I am counting on my oldest child, a teenage girl, to step up and be the teacher for her younger sisters and brothers. Our CLCPs and our adult education programs work to change that narrative. Finally, as we look at this year and the years ahead, I envision that we'll continue to partner with the Georgia Department of Education, the Department of Early Care and Learning, both of whom have been very generous supporters of the community literacy work of our CLCPs through grant funding. We are proud partners of the Get Georgia Reading Campaign and the Literacy Coordinating Council, spearheaded by GOSA and the DOE. These partnerships have allowed us to expand family literacy to ensure that we are empowering parents to read bedtime stories to their children, comprehend communication from the school, dispense medicine to their children, fill out job applications, and ultimately to have a bridge out of poverty. I am very grateful for your interest in our work, your support of adult education in Georgia. And I know that both Commissioner Dozier and I both look forward to continuing our partnerships across state agencies to support literacy.
Thank you. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I think the last few days, Senator Dixon and I have been very graciously letting the other members of the panel ask some questions, and we've kind of gone lacking. So we're going to ask a couple of days. So first of all, I think that you hit on something a second or two, and we've heard the Commissioner talked several times about the number of students in technical school going down, and of course we know graduation rates are high. So is there a function that even though these people are graduating, they don't feel comfortable going into a learning setting and taking some type of other type of course and all? That seems like a logical statement, right?
Yes, sir. We also, of course, always have people who are moving into Georgia who perhaps in other states were not successful in the K-12 setting.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could also just add to that, I think early in the pandemic, one of the toughest transitions to online education was our adult learner. It had primarily been in-person, face-to-face, and that was a transition that was a little harder, but I'm real proud of TCSG and the adult providers because we transitioned throughout that first year to that more virtual. It's still not the optimal for some of the adult learners, but some of them it actually does provide a platform to keep it going. So what we saw was, just like we talked about on dual enrollment earlier, we saw the adult learner take a big dip that first year of the pandemic, but we've seen this last year where they're coming back. So as we continue to move beyond the pandemic, I believe you're going to see those numbers rise back to pre-pandemic levels pretty quickly.
You also mentioned that 54% of the people in ages 19 to 74 in the United States had a literacy problem. What percentage of that in Georgia?
Yes, sir. So I believe it's a little under a quarter, 23.6%.
Okay. Yeah, you got it.
What do you think is the biggest barrier for adult learners that are illiterate or low proficiency in reading? What do you think their biggest barrier is in improving that or getting educated through school or online schooling?
Yes, sir. So I think it really varies. Certainly we know that if the adult learner is parenting children, childcare, and just being able to attend classes, we're free and we're flexible. But certainly if the student is working and then their children come home, they're struggling with childcare. We know in other parts of the state, transportation is significant. I mentioned Tolliver County. There is no public transportation. There's no Lyft. So in those instances, we have to be a little more creative to serve their needs. And then in some instances, unfortunately, there is a great deal of shame associated with not being able to read as an adult and not being able to read proficiently.
Senator Sessler.
That's Senator Sessler.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, you go.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for coming.
I'm sorry.
You have recently maybe inherited is not the best word, but probably close to the best word, the workforce readiness program that is going to be transferring tens of millions of dollars in federal grant money to TCSG. How are y'all going to be able to deploy that in the best possible way? And is any part of that grant going to be able to help with the literacy programs that you're working on here?
Yeah, great question. I think we're off to a good start when you look at the transfer of the employment services related to the Title III funding, which is what you're referring to. We've had meetings, since last session on how does that transition come, what employees come, how do we make sure the one-stops our customers do not feel a change in that. I believe we've got that foundation set in place, and obviously with any transition, the proof will be in the service. And so as we move forward, we'll be able to see where that service is. So I believe we got a great framework for the moving forward of really having that commonality of the Title I money, which was already at TCSG, with the Title III money, to really have the totality of providing employment guidance along with employment training. So I believe there's a lot of efficiencies that will come with it. I also believe that service will be elevated through that. As far as adult learners, I'm going to have to get back with you on that and see exactly how that would help. I'm sure that if my point person, Josh McCoon, was here, he could help me answer that a little more clear today, but I just don't have an answer for you, and I'll be happy to get back with you on it, though.
Senator, I apologize. Musical chairs.
Yes, sir.
Bullitt County. If y'all would, we're gonna let Bullitt County
Oh,
come up.
yes,
for-
sure. I didn't understand. You're getting me out of the high chair, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't feel bad. He asked the chancellor to retake his seat this morning at 7:30. So don't take offense.
We see the trend there, Mr.
Yeah, thank you. You got Thank y'all. This is two of my favorite people from Bullitt County. Mr. Charles Wilson, who is the chairman's, he's superintendent, and Crystal Simpkins, who heads up the literacy program. So if you will, Charles, start off, and Crystal.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee members. I'm Charles Wilson. As he said, I'm the superintendent of Bullitt County Schools, and I have with me today Ms. Crystal Simpkins, our Director of Early Learning and Literacy for the school system. I also have two of our senior staff members here with us today, Ms. Teresa Phillips and Dr. Julie Chance. They have all been part of this journey in Bullitt County that we're going to tell you a little bit about today, and want to thank you all for this opportunity. So what we're going to do, warning, this is very low tech. This is just a conversation to share our story and our journey with you, okay? So hopefully it'll be helpful. Senator Hickman, thank you all for inviting us. So when you really look at the complete other end of the spectrum here than what we just heard about, you know, whenever you have a problem and you have to look upstream to see, you know, what's going on to try and see if we can change the course of the trajectory of things. And so that's what we have been doing in Bullitt County. Of course, you know, in K-12, all we have the scope of control over is kindergarten. That's as far back as we can go. So our focus has really been about how do we address that? How do we impact that in our community without trying to invade that locus of control? I mean, let's face it, you know, we're not trying to climb into everyone else's business, but at the same time, what we're seeing, if you really look at how literacy gets measured at the third grade level, and then that's kind of a long way downriver. And when you look at that and realize that teachers are being put more and more in a bad situation of having to address the remediation that has to occur between K-3, we thought about, okay, what can we do differently? Because those are the people getting impacted along with the students. So what we're seeing is that students are really kind of more unprepared than we have seen in the past. You know, the problem changes and you don't change your approach, then you're going to get sort of eaten alive in the process. You know, lacking basic literacy skills, unfamiliarity with books, believe it or not, knowing how to position it, even which side is up, and how to navigate a book. Dependency on phones and tablets is another problem we're seeing. Short attention spans, exposure to information that none of us want our kids to see. Lacking social skills. I mean, that human interaction has disappeared, and that's a concern for all of us. And all of it, this is really kind of manifesting itself in a decreased cognitive development. I mean, however you want to put it. I'm not going to sit here and talk about the science with you. I'm just saying what we're telling you about is what we see as people in a community and a problem that we know is something we have to address. So as I mentioned a moment ago, the real casualties in this are our children and the teachers. They're the ones catching, you know what, and the fact that do more, better, faster, and get it right this time. And that's not helping us recruit good people into a field to help our children. It's a classic example of putting good people in a bad situation. I mentioned to you, get upstream. So our big idea is I'll share a few things with you, and then I'm going to sort of transition it over to Ms. Simpkins here. Our ideas in this process, and again, you have a handout in front of you, get upstream of the problem. K-12 is part of the problem or part of the issue, but it's really a larger problem in the community that we're part of. could, it's a community-based problem. And how we really wanted to look at this is, how can we be an impact on this while staying in the back seat and not overreaching in that scope of control? I often say, nobody wants more government in their lives, right? So, how can we really reach back to the 0 to 5 age range and working with our community without getting in the way? I think it's important to recognize there are a lot of good people in our communities trying to solve this problem. That's it. There are a lot of good people trying, and it's wearing them out. There are also a lot of people who want to do something about it but don't know how to address it. And so what we wanted to do is make sure our approach was going to help and not create community confusion. Some key ideas: put books in the hands of children. We want to reactivate that love of reading, that love of learning, and the love that comes from people, adults and children, reading together in a healthy partnership. Let's face it, it's part of the essence of the human soul. Capturing the heart of the spirit of the community. People want to help, and it came down to a community-wide collaborative. So, given all of that, what we knew we couldn't do is come barreling in and just tell everybody how to do it the right way. Nobody wanted to hear that. So what we did is we prioritized early learning, early literacy from 0 to 5 in our community in our strategic plan. That allowed me to work with our board to create a position that is our director of early learning and literacy that would be a partner, kind of the quarterback in the community, to address some things, to work with the community agencies that were already trying to do some things in our community, develop some business partnerships to support it, which we have found great success in. And that ultimately led to the development of what we call our Bullitt County Literacy Council, which at this point, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Ms. Simpkins. You'll take it from here.
So the purpose of the Bullitt County Literacy Council is to create a sustainable community collaborative that works to increase kindergarten readiness for students birth through pre-kindergarten and to support the improvement of literacy levels for all children kindergarten through grade 5. To ensure that our efforts and resources were streamlined, we created the Bullitt County Literacy Council, and our partners that make up the council are listed on the handout before you. We hold monthly stakeholder meetings where we talk and discuss ways that we can continue to increase early literacy in Bullitt County, and then we work to enforce those ideas. We knew that we had to make a change in our community and that it had to start before the child entered our doors on the first day of school. We had to get children and the community excited about reading books. So to spark that excitement, we created the Bullitt County Schools Book Bus. So we took a regular school bus, we painted it blue, got it wrapped with local partnerships and businesses. We had everyone to buy into it. We had a local business to wrap the book bus. We had another business owner to go inside and fill it with colors. It's almost like a pack of Skittles. It's floated inside of the bus. And so the excitement that we start seeing in the children and the families once they entered that bus, it brought on the excitement of books again. We distribute books across Bullitt County for the children to keep. Our purpose is to increase home libraries. So the students don't return the books back to us, they keep those books. And we also provide resources to parents and grandparents, any caregiver, as to how they can read to their child. That was one of the things that we were finding. We were having to teach people how to read to their child. What are some things, basic things that you can do to increase their early literacy in your child? We were able to make this happen, as I stated, by creating an opportunity for the community to take ownership in the transformation we were making, and our partners listed on your handout did just that. You can see we have Bullitt County Schools, Georgia Power, Whitfield Signs, the State Department of Education, local businesses, and the Bullitt County Schools' commitment to fill in all the gaps. They took ownership in the shift and developed a sense of pride in the changes we were making in the community. We are proud to say that the Bullitt County Schools Book Bus has been utilized in over 50 scheduled book distributions and other community events, and has been used to distribute more than 20,000 books to children as well as resources to families. This bus has become a symbol of reading, family, and community in Bullitt County, and has brought excitement to children and the community about books and reading. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, we were able to provide a sense of comfort to our children and families by providing them with books and resources. If you look at the handout, you will see a picture of our bus. That is Book Bus 1.0, I like to call it, because Book Bus 2.0 will be introduced next month, and we are very excited. Our next step was our Bullet Read campaign. We created a Bullet Read campaign to put a brand on the work and help focus the community on our mission. As you can see, our READ stands for R, reading, encourage the creation of reading nooks. E, environment, encourage a literacy-rich environment. A, access, increase access to books and reading resources. And D, development, increase early brain development. We use these cute little decals, which were also created and produced by a local business partner, to place on all the doors of our local businesses. We all know that when we visit a restaurant, we're looking for that A on the door, right? In Bullitt County, we want it to be that anytime you visit a location in Bullitt County, you are seeing this logo on the door. That shows that the business owner supports our early literacy initiative, and they are sponsoring what we're doing in the community. Another accomplishment has been the development of reading nooks. So a reading nook is just a cozy place for a child to go and read. A reading nook, we've encouraged the creation of reading nooks in homes and businesses. We have an annual reading nook contest where parents post pictures of them reading with their child. They're able to vote on it, and we actually supply that family with an actual made reading nook through partnerships with local businesses, as well as our construction team at the high school. They are taking old furniture and converting it into a reading nook that we're able to give out in the community. We fill it up with books, and we're able to put it into the homes or local businesses. We've also placed book vending machines in each of our elementary schools. The machines serve as a positive reinforcement for behavior and attendance. Students receive tokens that can be used to acquire books from the vending machine, and the books were donated through the Toys for Tots literacy program. We are educating parents and the community on early learning and literacy importance with 0 to 5 age children, and early brain development through parent and community educational resources, which involves community presentations, newspaper articles, early literacy newsletters, social media blasts, billboards, which are sponsored by community partners, digital signs, which are sponsored by local businesses, flyers and informational pamphlets, as well as the Magic Book Bus. Our efforts have sparked the community and the state level support. We've received over $16,000 from community donations and grants totaling more than $135,000. Bullitt County Schools, the Bullitt County Literacy Council, and the Bullitt County community are great examples of community resourcefulness and how we can partner to provide children with beneficial learning experiences that align with our district's mission of preparing students for success and enhancing the value of education and of community. Alexander Denayer says that when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. In Bullitt County, we are working to provide a literacy-rich environment for every child. We'd like to leave you with some of these takeaways.
Thank you, Ms. Simpkins. And as you can see, I appreciate the opportunity to follow TCSG. What we're trying to do is get as far upriver as we can in this. And as you can see, we all know how important this is. But if in this effort, if we can leave with some basic ideas and explaining our journey and the takeaways that we have, is it really is, this is a community issue. This is not something that a school system can fix, that no individual can fix. This is a community issue, and it requires a community solution. That has been our experience, our observation, and our experience. School systems can have an influence on the solution, though. We can be great partners. We can influence, kind of bringing things together. We have resources we can bring to the table. But we found it's really important that that collaboration and that initiative that is needed by community members, parents, churches, other community agencies, stepping forward and understanding it's that dance you have to have together where you're not getting each other's way, but at the same time you're helping kind of lead the way. and not stifling that community synergy. That's really important, we found. So we found that making it engaging and sustainable, really important. And in the end, as Ms. Simpkins says, is that community ownership. That is the key to this, that what we have found. And hopefully we can all learn better together in this process and have an impact so that our children are more prepared coming into kindergarten. So that journey for them is better, and our teachers are, we're supporting our teachers and being able to address the problem. So we thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank y'all.
you.
And we'll wait till the end for questions.
Sounds
okay?
good. Thank you.
Dr. Beth McMichael in Barrow County. That's your crowd. That is.
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, esteemed committee members, thank you so much for allowing us to come down and just tell you a little bit about our story. We've got a lot to be proud of, and a lot of work to do when it comes to literacy. And we're just going to kind of hit the high points for you here, and hopefully we can answer any questions afterwards. My job is superintendent. My name is Chris McMichael, and my job is just to tee it up and let you hear from two folks that are in classrooms and working with teachers and kids every day. I've got our literacy K-8 specialist here with me, Dr. Beth McMichael, and I also have the principal of one of our elementary schools, Diane Bresson from County Line Elementary, who I will swap seats with in just a moment. So first of all, just to kind of set the stage, we're a fairly large and growing district. We are a charter system. We have had a huge influx of folks the past couple of years. About 500 to 600 kids entered our district just this year so far, which is we are building and moving forward. So just to kind of show that piece right here, our district size, we're no Gwinnett or anyone like that, but we are actually the 24th largest when it comes to our student population of the 180. Unfortunately, our revenue actually backs up, and we're around 151, although this past year we have seen that come up a little bit as folks have moved in. So we run a fairly large school system on a fairly small budget. Not going to go too much into these. I'm going to come back to these at the end, but kind of the pieces that really run things for us is when it comes to literacy and really any of our other programs is we strive for unity and not uniformity. We want everybody on the same page, but we don't want to stifle our teacher autonomy and in the classroom in the way they teach there. Firmly and very highly believe that proper screening and progress monitoring is vital. That's true in all areas, but especially when it comes to literacy. We know, without a shadow of doubt, that our well-prepared teachers make the biggest difference for our kids and our community. Much like our friends down in Bullitt County, we know that we need more focus on very deliberate focus on birth to age 5, and we've been working through that for a number of years now. And we know that our schools need support from us, funding and flexibility, but we also need that meaningful accountability. We need to test and assess, not to provide what I know you all have heard the term before, the autopsy reports, the things at the end of the year. We want to have that going on during the school year so we can be nimble and move quickly to when the teacher finds an issue with a child, they can begin correcting it then and use that to guide our improvement across the district. And just very quickly, we did see, of course, an impact on the pandemic. We started really pushing this literacy journey probably back in 2017, 2018. So pre-pandemic, we were at 35% third grade milestones results. Fifth grade, we were 77, and you can see the drop there. And we don't hide that, and we are concerned with it, and we are working hard to get that taken care of. And I'm going to now turn this over to the folks, as I said, that are boots on the ground. I get to say, here's the problem and go do, and they get to figure out how to fix it. So they are two of our best, and we'll leave it with them. Diane?
Good afternoon, committee. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It is quite an honor, and we are so just pleased to be able to add our voices to this conversation. We've been working really hard in Barrow County, but as you just saw in our data, we're not seeing the results we want to see yet. So we know that we have a lot of work left to do, but we are willing to do it, and we're excited about the work. We know there's room for growth. As Dr. McMichael stated, we began to create this solid foundation for reading instruction around 2017, 2018. And I'm going to be talking to you about our program and the different components of our program, and I'll also be sharing some of the barriers we face as we try to make improvements. The first component of our program is a common instructional framework in kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. And this is something that was developed with all of our team members. Teachers had their eyes on it and gave feedback, administrators, instructional coaches, and it really doesn't outline what teachers teach, but rather how they structure their time within the classroom. So it's a way to ensure that all of our students receive whole group, standards-based instruction every day on grade level, but also it builds in time for us to deliver that small group differentiated instruction that our students so desperately need, especially in K-3 classrooms, especially what we've seen with the pandemic. I've even been working with our middle school teachers on implementing small group differentiated instruction because of the gaps, and that's been a push for them. It's not something they've had to do in the past, but you know, everyone's willing to learn and to put in that work. This framework just ensures that every day the kids have their lesson, they have their work session, and then they're going to come back together at the end for a closing where the teacher's summarizing the learning for that day. So there's sort of a visual example of that framework in action, the teacher providing direct instruction, modeling of a skill, and then providing support in small groups, and the kids continuing to practice on their own or with their peers. Some of the barriers we faced is even though we have this framework in place in all of our classrooms and the work session is the largest piece of the framework, some kids just need more time for small group instruction. They need more intensive interventions. They get that differentiated instruction piece with their teacher, but they really need more. So trying to find both the time and the personnel to fill that need has really been a real challenge. Let's see. So yeah, additional personnel and additional time. Those are always challenges. And of course, we need timely, actionable assessment data to be able to figure out what kids need and to be able to provide those interventions in a timely manner. So there are 2 assessments that we give 3 times a year, and these assessments really give us the information that we need to differentiate instruction and to fill those skill gaps, as well as accelerate kids who are ready to move on past grade level standards. So one of the assessments is DIBELS, and it's a funny name, but it stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills, and it's basically an assessment that's given one-on-one. It's just a 1-minute assessment for each measure, but it lets us see which students might be at risk for not meeting end of grade level reading goals. And so it lets us know that so we can intervene quickly. We can figure out where along these building blocks for reading, where are kids struggling, where should they be, where are they, and how can we intervene. So it allows us to not only see who might be at risk, but also provides us with information we can use to tailor instruction for that student, and then also to monitor progress throughout the year. MAP is another assessment that we use. It's norm reference, so we can see how our kids compare to other kids across the nation. It helps us to provide tailored instruction for students. It helps us to design lessons that meet the needs of individual students, and it gives us Lexile levels. We know we get Lexile levels with the milestone assessment, but that comes at the end of the year. This gives us that Lexile level at the beginning of the year, so teachers can actually use it to pull appropriate text for students and design appropriate instruction. So that timely data piece is so important to us. We've also made quite an investment in instructional materials. In 2017, 2018, when I moved into this position, one of the first things that I did with instructional coaches and with administrators and teachers, we began to observe literacy instruction across all the schools in our district. And one of the things that we noticed was teachers didn't have any common teaching resources. Teachers, especially in our elementary schools, just do not have much planning time. They have maybe, this is the reality of it, they have maybe 40 minutes a day. That's often filled with meetings, reaching out to parents. There's not a lot of time for planning, especially lots of differentiated small groups like we're asking them to do. So they take a lot of it home with them. But I'm going off topic here. Sorry. So we realized they needed instructional materials. They needed some resources. So we began to make the investment in adopting some curricular materials for our teachers. One of the things our teachers in the early grades really felt strongly about was having a systematic phonics program that was grounded in structured literacy principles. They wanted a scope and sequence, they wanted decodable text, so we were able to put that in place, and we were really happy to do that. After the pandemic, we realized that we actually needed that resource in our 3rd through 5th grade classrooms as well. So one of the things we've been able to do is use ESSER funds to put that program, extend that all the way up to 5th grade. We've used L4GA funds to provide lots and lots of student text for differentiated instruction. So we've been able to do a lot that normally we may not have been able to do without those grant funds. So you can see we've invested a lot of our own local funds, and then we've sought other funding sources. We've also invested in personnel. I spoke earlier about the need for all hands on deck, lots of people working with kids in small groups. And we were happy to use ESSER funds to be able to fund academic interventionists. We have one in each school, so that's been quite an investment, but I think as you'll hear from Ms. Bresson, it's really paying off for some of our schools. One of our L4GA schools was also able to hire an additional interventionist, so they have 2 in their school. And we know that, a program, instructional resources, those things are not magic bullets. It does not, having a program does not guarantee student success. The program is only as good as, the teacher that it's in the hands of. So investing in teachers' continued professional learning and support is so important. Even some of our wonderful experienced veteran teachers, when we have conversations about how to teach reading, when we think back to our own education, a lot of our teachers, and myself included, don't feel like when we left college we felt really equipped to teach students how to read. Most of the things we feel like we've learned on the job. So we know that their college is important, but that continued professional learning piece is just so vital. Research changes, we need to stay abreast of that and respond to it. So that professional learning piece for teachers is really important. We've invested in instructional coaches at all of our schools to support teachers as they implement new strategies and materials. We do a lot of district-led professional learning to support teachers, and we also bring in guest experts. We send teachers for a lot of endorsements, reading endorsements, dyslexia, gifted, ESOL. We really try to provide a variety of professional learning experiences and support. Some of the barriers, just time, lack of adequate time for professional learning. I talked about planning times being short.
4 minutes.
Okay, thank you. We want to make sure that we provide more time and ways to compensate teachers for their off-contract hours. We also make sure that we are continually looking at our program and revising it as needed, making refinements. And like Bullitt County just talked about, we realized the need to really focus on our birth through 5 population. We've been collecting DIBELS data since 2014, and as you can see on the slide, the percentage of students entering kindergarten ready to learn has dropped sharply. I mean, look at that, from 59% ready to learn in 2014 to 31% ready to learn now. And we also don't have enough spots in our BCSS pre-K classrooms for all the kids who want to be a part of that program. So like Bullitt County, we've kind of taken a community involvement approach. We have now have the Barrow Literacy Partnership. It's a partnership with our local library system, other community partners to put books in kids' hands and to provide workshops for parents and educators. We've also tried to provide more support for our own Barrow County school system pre-Ks. And I'll let you read about the barriers. Overall, just generating sustainable funding sources to keep that going once our grant funds are gone. So I'm going to let Diane, let Ms. Bresson talk about some of the successes we're seeing, because we are seeing some growth. In County Line, Ms. Bresson's school is making some great strides, and I'm going to let her talk about how they've done that.
Okay, so I think this first slide is our DIBELS. So that's one of the assessments that we give 3 times a year. And this is showing how our kindergarten, first and second graders, how many points on average they grew from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. And then the next slide is MAP. And so what we're looking at here is the to maintain, you want your classes to be at 50%. That means you are with 50% of the kids out there on NWEA's normed group. And so that means you're maintaining. So you want to be above the 50%. And as you can see there, County Line ended up above the 50% in every grade level and quite a bit above in a number of areas. So I guess my job in 20 seconds or less is to give you that magic bullet for that. I don't know that I have a magic bullet. If I did, that would be wonderful. I think it comes down to a number of things, to tell you the truth. Within our building, I feel like it begins with leadership, and it begins with building that climate and culture in your building. Part of that is having the right people in the right positions. We work very hard to make sure that any of our support teachers are our strongest teachers in our building. We tell them at the beginning of every year, for you to keep this position next year, guess what? All those classes that you go into, we want them to come to us and say how much they love and need your help in their room, or we'll find someone else. Some other things that I feel like we need to be a part of is that scheduling of our literacy blocks and our intensive interventions. So that kind of leads into the other piece of the student support. So we work really hard in our small group instruction within the classroom, making sure that those support teachers that are entering that room, that everybody is aligned and doing the same things. So we have conversations about that with them all at the table. What are you doing when you're doing whole group? How are you supporting what they're working on? Just to make sure we're not disjointed. We were amazed when we had some meetings how disjointed some of that was, and I think we got that cleared up really fast, and I feel like that just kind of catapulted all of our scores for our kids, because now they're hearing the things over and over again, the same things. The other thing I would say is the extra time that Dr. McMichael talked about earlier. We have some intensive interventions that we are using this year. So we have an extra 30 to 60 minutes every day that we work with kids that are struggling to read in K2. And we provide that through that academic interventionist we talk about and through our EIP teachers. And they are working with groups of students that are no more than 6, and it's anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to 60 minutes a day, and it's every day. It's not, 10 minutes, 3 days a week or anything like that. It's every day. And I feel like that's part of the success that we have seen in our kids really growing. And that's the number one thing we all want to see. Our kids come in where they are, and we need to move them as far as we can get them each year.
Thank you, thank
That's
you.
it.
I'll tell you what we're gonna do is, we're gonna keep on moving, but, I think all of us have got some questions, and all of us wanna do it, so to keep from messing up the time with the next group, I'm gonna, the senators that can hang around, I'd like for us to move from here to another room, because I've got some questions, and I think it'd be good for all of us to kind of converse, the 3 school systems converse together with those that can stay. But now, we're gonna keep rolling, so we ain't gonna, so now we're gonna look for Dr. Grant Rivers. Would that be okay with everybody if we did that? Okay, great. I know you got a meeting, I didn't want to mess you up.
Yeah, I'll have to be here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman and Senators. I might just ask if you want to pull that up. I'll get going because I'm mindful of time. My name is Grant Rivera. I serve as very proud superintendent at Marietta City Schools, just 30 minutes up the road. I join you today with several members of our leadership team, our board member, Jaylene Hunter, who's here as well. Thank you so very much to this entire group for the way in which you prioritize this conversation. Let's be clear. This is about the children. And let's also be clear, if we get this right, your vision, our execution, when we together get this right, we can change every corner of this state about everything we care about, from workforce development to the economy to, quite candidly, the school to prison pipeline. The conversation we're having here is not only about children, but about this entire state and every aspect of its success. So I thank you for leading this conversation. As a superintendent of Marietta, as a brief snapshot, we have 12 schools, just under 9,000 kids. We are roughly 80% Black and Hispanic, 62% free and reduced lunch. Interestingly, Proportionally, we have the highest homeless population in all of Metro Atlanta. We bring a lot of challenges to our classrooms and I think a lot of opportunities. I want to be clear, we believe in Marietta, and I believe across the state, that if we're going to get this right, around not only kindergarten readiness, but also third grade literacy and success thereon, and drive every other indicator across the state of Georgia, this is about us providing direct, explicit, and systematic phonics instruction. And let me stop for a minute and say this. I've been in education for 24 years. I got 4 degrees on the wall behind me in my office. All the acronyms and all the stuff today, I got a headache. So I can appreciate how each of you are drinking from a fire hose. So I'm going to keep this extremely, extremely simple. We have to make sure that our children have the instruction they need in the classroom. No other Band-Aid will fix it. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, how are we setting our teachers and our children up for success? So I want to talk to you for a brief moment about our partners, and then I will lead to you about our beliefs. As far as our partners in Marietta, we have made a commitment to go birth through age 8 around literacy. We call it literacy and justice for all. It's very, very simple. The number one driver for third grade literacy, as we all understand is important, is what? Kindergarten readiness. We can't fix kindergarten readiness on the first day of school. What we have done in Marietta is we have partnered through a birth through age 8 belief, and we partnered with WellStar, birthing hospitals, medical providers, everyone who is forward-facing with families to help understand what are the basic foundational elements that you should be doing at each developmental milestone, birth, first, second, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, around developing the reading brain. I have a first grader and a fourth grader. I am not far away from that birthing hospital. They spent 2 hours telling me how to put in a car seat. They spent 0 minutes talking to me about how to develop the reading brain. So if we can partner with all of our forward-facing adults, we believe our responsibility in Marietta is to create an ecosystem and not wait for kindergarten. So we partner with hospitals and forward-facing adults at birth, age 1, 2, and 3. We have partnered in Marietta with every single pre-K provider for 3 and 4-year-olds. And we've said, can we agree on what instruction should look like in a classroom? Because those kids are coming to Marietta. And then in grades pre-K through 3, we're working very intentionally around as I said, direct and explicit instruction around phonics. And I'll talk about more of that in just a second. This involves, like I mentioned, hospitals, pre-K providers, community partners. It involves post-secondary institutions, United Way. Our belief is we're not going to solve this in a vacuum. And our priority is to make sure that everyone understands the importance of developing the reading brain in Marietta. So what does that look like? So our efforts, as I mentioned, it's birth through age 8. What we believe is simple. We are not going to fix the literacy issue and ultimately across the state of Georgia, those other indicators I mentioned, if we try to find a program or a teacher toolbox. The answer is not in the program or the box, it's in the people. It's about us trusting and developing the capacity of our teachers. So in addition to partnering with people in our community, our number one priority has been this simple, and that is, do our teachers know how to teach reading? And unfortunately, like so many things in our society, but certainly in education, for decades, there has been different beliefs around what does the science say and the research say about teaching reading. As I sit here in front of you now as a former special ed teacher, a parent of 2 young children, and also now a superintendent, there's no question about what the best pedagogy is around teaching kids. I don't need you all to understand it. I need you all to understand that we as a state have to have a vision in going towards that direction. Somebody has to be bold and courageous enough to say, this is what the current science says about teaching reading. I'll give you one more parallel that isn't about reading. It's about my first grader I told you about. My first grader is a cancer survivor. When her doctor came to me and said she had stage 4 cancer, I didn't ask him to give me the chemo regimen from 40 years ago. I said, I want to know what we're doing now. And what's the most current research? We do not want to be treating illiteracy with the solutions from 30 years ago, no more than I wanted that doctor treating my daughter. So for us in Marietta, in addition to the community-facing efforts, it's also about what we do in our pre-K through 3rd grade classroom to make sure every single teacher has the capacity to teach every single child. What's our goal? To help every child reach their fullest reading potential by 3rd grade. Don't say we want every kid proficient, because I've got kids that can go far beyond proficiency. And that looks very simply like, how do we help teachers decode and work with children. How do they learn how to physically read? At. How do we learn how to blend? It has been said that you can surround kids with books and they will learn to read. And that you can read your kid and they will learn to read. That might be true for some, but it is not true for all. If you believe the national research around students who have reading comprehension deficits, specifically dyslexia, I will tell you that 20% of the kids that you and I might meet in our communities that we serve will never learn how to read if I give them a book and I simply read to them. They are going to have direct, explicit instruction, and we have to have confidence that our teachers know how to do that with today's science, not yesterday's science. We in Marietta have leaned in extensively to not only supporting our teachers. Last week, our school board approved hiring 40 additional teachers in Marietta so we could drop teacher ratios down to 1 to 10. We also believe that teacher credentialing is so important that we dangled a $5,000 supplement to any teacher who walks in our door who wants to work in Marietta or is currently in Marietta, who has very specific reading credentials. We're supporting our teachers. Some of you might be familiar with Orton Gillingham or the dyslexia certification that the Georgia DOE provides. There are other types of certifications that we believe are here and now and relevant that we want to incentivize teachers to get. And in doing so, we will raise the collective capacity of our teachers to move every child to reach their fullest reading potential. And maybe that gets, as I'm respectful of time, to my final ask. And I have 2 specific items, and then I have a reflection for your vision. My first ask. Marietta is one of 7 school districts across the state to join the dyslexia pilot. It was the belief that we shouldn't send kids to private schools because they have reading comprehension deficits. It's the belief that we should support the 20% in our public schools. We've been one of 7 school districts leading that work across the state. By the start of the 24 school year, August of 2024, we are supposed to have a dyslexia screener available across the state of Georgia. My ask to each of you is that we fund that screener this year, so therefore we have a screener in place to identify early in kindergarten whether or not kids have significant reading comprehension deficits. So my first ask is around a dyslexia screener that aligns with previous legislation that is to be initiated in August of 24. My second ask is around teacher preparation. To my colleagues and friends in higher ed, I have had the opportunity to collaborate with many deans of the College of Education. Here's what they will tell you, or at least several will tell you, is that when the state made changes to the teacher certification requirements, where programs may have gone from 129 credit hours down to 120 credit hours, they were eliminating reading endorsements, especially in elementary, because they had to get all the other content in. Ladies and gentlemen, if we have a vision around literacy, how can you eliminate the most vital thing that's going to set a child up for success? So my second ask is to be reflective about what are the post-secondary dynamics around eliminating critical programs from teacher preparation experiences. I'll give you an example that makes this very real. When we seek to hire teachers coming out of post-secondary programs, oftentimes 1 in 10 would have any reading credentials whatsoever. 1 in 10. And they didn't even necessarily have the most current reading credentials because some of the professors have been sitting, with all due respect, in universities for the last 20, 30 years, and they're relying on yesterday's pedagogy, like my daughter's yesterday chemotherapy. 1 in 10 walked in the door in Marietta and applied with reading credentials, some of which were outdated. We had a job fair on Monday where we dangled $5,000 for anybody who met one of our 5 reading credentials that is current, and 50% of the people who walked in to apply in Marietta had the reading credentials of today. So my second ask, in addition to funding the dyslexia screener, my second ask is we have got to get alignment across this state around teacher preparation programs, and we cannot cannibalize the very programs that are intended to help teachers know how to teach reading. It's not, as I said earlier, a kit or a box or a program. It's a person. My third and final reflective ask, if you will, for this room is, how is Georgia going to set a vision going forward around literacy? And that's really your opportunity. You can look at other states who paved the way before us 10, 12 years ahead of us. I think there's an incredible moment that we have now to make sure that we as a state make a statement around literacy. And could not be more honored and grateful for you to invest your time and energy in this conversation. So thank you so very much.
Very good. Thank you. Thank y'all. We have, to follow up on what I said a few minutes ago, 310 is open. So we're going to go in a vacant room and, somebody, let's see, we can take one or two, let's take one or two questions. Number 13 is, okay, there we go. We're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Superintendent Rivera, thanks for being here. Proud to have Marietta. I do have a question for you. The passion of Cobb County is evident here. Thank you. I asked some folks yesterday, and I wanted to ask you, because you really nailed on something that I sort of see as the issue. And I don't expect it to be happening now, but you're raising questions that to me occur that we need to create a culture change. Before kids are showing up in school, how do we take the behaviors that parents, who have high educational level of attainment, they understand how to create this teaching mind, this reading mind. How do we take those behaviors and teach those to folks before kids get to school? Because everything can't be institutional. Do you have any ideas about how, at scale, we can get books in the hands, maybe a stack of books in the hands of people for 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and have really coach parents at scale on reading to their kids, so kids, even for low-income households, are getting the same kinds of things that kids from high-income households are?
Sure, and I want to pull the conversation, Senator, back a little bit and say I want to frame it around not so much putting books in front of kids. That is helpful. The reality is there's also developmental milestones that we can hit. What are the things, just like I was taught on how to put in a car seat, what are the things that we want families to be doing so therefore they're developing, there is a language-rich environment where children are hearing the phonemes at birth and age 1 and age 2. And I think those are the things that we can engage with families and help them understand these are best practices. I will tell you, in our community, we offer at the local Y families to come in. They may not want to put their kid in daycare, but they will come once a week, and we will go through those activities about how they talk with their children. For example, a lot of times families want to mimic the words back to kids. Don't mimic back to children. You actually want to use all of the different phonemes that kids should be developing. So I think there's a lot of other activities we can be doing, and I think that to scale, there are so many community partners across every corner of this state who want to do that kind of work. Our responsibility is to show them what the right work is. Yeah.
Thank you. Senator Dixon has one quick question, and that's it.
No question, just comment. Grateful for the 3 school systems coming out today and presenting to us. So grateful for what y'all are doing, your forward thinking on literacy. And I agree with the superintendent from Marietta. We've got to come up with a plan and make this, and get out of our silos and work together as a state to push this initiative forward. But thank you for all 3 of these different school systems and all that y'all are doing for literacy.
Very good. Thank you, sir. And we're going to move to 310 for a few minutes. Thank y'all. It's yours. Good.